I'm Ken Eck. I'm with Purdue Extension here in Dubois County. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for the third of 4 virtual Lunch and Learn sessions being brought to you again by the Land Stewardship Initiative, or the LSI as we call it. If you missed last week's session with members of the LSI Ag Advisory Committee, a video on what they said last week and on their personal experiences with soil health and the changes they've seen at the fields at VUJC can be found on the Dubois County SWCD YouTube channel. So you can go back and look at that at your leisure. This week we'll be talking to 3 local farmers, Alex Hohl, Duane Hopf, and Jack Welp, as they kind of share their combined decades of experience with cover crops, grazing, and soil health on their family farms. One thing before we get started again, if you have any questions or comments during our presentations, you can type them in the chat box, which is located at the very bottom middle of your screen under the word chat. We'll either get to answering them during the presentation if we can, or we'll get to them at the very end when we have a dedicated live question and answer session for this kind of stuff. So with that, let's move on to the questions. We're going to kind of go alphabetically today, and we're going to start off with Alex. Alex Hohl is one of our 3 farmers today, and we're going to have him kind of talk about first off, what type of operation he has, and while he does that, Melissa, if you go ahead and fire up the pictures, we'll let him kind of talk through that as he talks about different things on his farm operations. So Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. My name's Alex Hohl. I have a farm in the southern part of the county in the St. Henry area. And I've been managing it for about 10 years myself, work with my dad. And it's a small farm, just a few hundred acres, and we got some cow-calf operation, and I have a few pasture pigs that I run. But I guess what I kind of got into cover cropping and regenerative agriculture is because I don't have a whole lot of land. I just wanted to try to make the most of what acres I was able to farm. So pretty common for me to try to get cover crops on every acre that we do row crops on. And luckily we have a lot of the permanent fences around some of the fields. So what I try to do is graze cattle in the spring if it's dry, or a lot of times we will make hay or wet bale some of the more digestible cover crops that the cattle like. And we can kind of almost get a double crop system off of the ground that we have. So it's been a way for me to kind of do more with less, I guess.
Okay, Melissa, could you kind of go through the slides we have today and kind of show some of the things that Alex does at his place? Alex, maybe as we go through these, just kind of briefly mention what you see here on the slides, and then again, give a clue to Jessica or Melissa, and she can go ahead and advance it then.
Yeah, so this was Indo Rye Grass mixed with a brassica. As you can see, the brassica is kind of the paler plants in the picture. Just to get a lot of size. I ran those after 117-day corn that was planted, I believe, early May. So I was kind of pushing the envelope to get any growth out of the brassica part of it, but it looks like I've got about as much root mass below ground as I do forage or vegetative growth up top. So I'm pretty happy about that. Annual rye grass is one that'll really put some good roots on, almost too much sometimes if you got some tile laterals. I've seen it get into those before. And you can't see in the pictures, but my neighbor to the north literally planted the same mix. I think it was only 10 days before this, and his turnips and radishes were as big as the ones you'll see in Duane Hopf's picture. So I guess one thing that you can take away from this is 10 days to 2 weeks can make a humongous difference on your growth, especially on the brassicas and even the grasses to an extent. So I'm happy with the cover crop, but like I said, it was pushing it for that mix that I used. Yeah, that was a turn. I had those were turnips in that field picture, and then this is my garden. I actually took the leftover seed. Actually, no, I would have planted these in late August, so I planted these in late August when I got the seed in from the supplier, and just took a a hand spreader and threw it over my garden. We make a little turnip slaw and stuff, and I just kind of like the green in the winter. So those actually had some pretty good growth before they got melted down by the freeze. But I didn't run any radishes this year. It was only turnips. The cows seem to like those if they get some size on them, and you get a dry spell in the fall, you can graze them. But it's kind of hard to get the time you want unless you're pushing that early September envelope with those.
So Alex, getting back to some basic questions here. By attending some of the LSI activities, what did you learn at their site that you were maybe able to bring back to your farm? Kind of like, what were the aha moments, or what were the light bulb went on saying, I might be able to use this back at my farm?
I think in general, just I think that's foreground over there, and they have proven that soil can be, I don't know if I want to say restored, but it can be improved definitely. And I always like the soil aggregate demonstrator that they use, and shows how the different soil structures kind of exist and the water infiltration. That's a nice display that they use. Their water quality leaving the farm has improved drastically from what Melissa has shown me and what I've seen. Of course, tile pays. If you can afford tile, the different improvements they made on that farm have drastically helped it. And other than that, I mean, it shows that even the poorest dirt, I think cover crops and the practices that they've employed have helped it a lot.
Okay. What do you consider the most effective or best soil health practice that you've adopted to your farm, either from the LSI project or from stuff you picked up from neighbors or workshops or other things you might have attended?
I just like to have something growing as much as I can possible. Cover crops enable that, I feel, for picking up nutrients, cycling in the soil, attraction of earthworms, sequestering carbon dioxide, putting carbon back into the soil. As often as you can have something growing, I think is a benefit to your soil.
Kind of keeping that circle of life thing going then throughout the whole year instead of just during the corn or soybean season then.
Yeah, and reducing your fallow period, I think that's a big key. Everybody's seen fallow syndrome through their years, and this seems to reduce that, in my opinion.
If you could go back 10 years or when you started farming, what changes do you think you would have done instead of what you may have done over the last 10 years to help improve your farm operation?
I would continue to apply as much or more manure as possible, acquire it wherever I can. Maybe potentially start planting some shorter season crops. There's been a lot of trend in that, especially in soybeans. So that would go hand in hand with getting these cover crops on the farm. And that wasn't really adopted 10 years ago, I don't feel like, as much. I've got some friends that deal with shorter season corns that have had pretty good success. And just doing as much grid tiling, pattern tiling, and improvements like wascobs and buffer strips along ditches where they can prevent erosion or soil loss.
Okay. What advice do you have for other farmers who are considered making some kind of change to their farm operation?
I would start small and have a plan in place before you do it. A lot of the farmers that I deal with and I'm friends with that start with cover crops get frustrated because they didn't maybe know the species, how to terminate the species, lack of growth because they planted it too late. You're going to have to do a little research, and I wouldn't go in too big of an area on your farm at first because it may not be the way you want. And I've heard that a lot. The first few years of cover crops are a little bit trying for people. But if you have a plan in place, I think you can make them successful.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to tell the audience about your operation or any insights you might have before you move on to Duane?
Yeah, two negatives I've had from cover crops crops. I like to use cereal rye mainly for the reason that soybeans plant into it nicely, and you can plant it later and have some success. Two things I've noticed with cereal rye: when I follow with corn, it can be okay, but you have to have good fertilizer up front and keep that stuff parted off of the carbon nitrogen ratio gets kind of out of whack with that one. And another thing I've had with late terminated cover crops, it's been a challenge, is armyworms. I've lost 10 to 20 acres a few times from armyworms in May. So those are two things I would watch for if you're going to do later termination. A lot of pests, and I've seen cutworms in them too. So keep that in mind if you do go into cover crops.
Okay, and we had one thing here in the chat box. Alex, were there any problems with terminating the ryegrass?
A lot of people think that ryegrass is glyphosate tolerant, or it's kind of something that's resistant to Roundup. What I've seen, and the guy told me this that knew a lot about cover crops, is when you kill it, you only use glyphosate, and you need to really heat that mix up. We add a little bit of citric acid to our water before the glyphosate is added. You get the pH extremely low, and you cannot have any antagonism from a group 4 like a 2,4-D. We've had pretty good success killing it, but I don't know that there's as many resistant varieties as people say. I think it has to be sprayed perfectly, and that's what I found works.
The other thing too that Purdue talks about is you have to make sure you have it come out of dormancy. A lot of times the rule of thumb is make sure you're maybe mowed his grass twice before you do it, because some guys have gone in too early, maybe sprayed it, and they put the correct amount on or done the correct things you've mentioned, Alex, but I know it just hasn't fully come out of dormancy yet, and that's a trick they have to watch when they're putting the chemicals on. So several things there, but it does a lot of great things for the root systems and adding to organic matter in the soil when it works right. So
yeah, and I'll say we like to wet bale the annual ryegrass, and Purdue doesn't rate it as high on the forage as I would consider, because I've never seen the samples we send in and the way the cattle love it. It's just one of the best feed quality cover crops that you can utilize that I've seen. That's why I grow it, but it can be a thing to kill for sure.
Yeah, it's by getting the grazing in there, you're getting a good chance to get some payback for the seed and establishment costs that maybe a pure row cropper doesn't maybe get sometimes. So you got some dual use out of it then. Okay, next we'll go to Duane. Duane, kind of the same thing here. If you could bring the slides up, Jessica or Melissa, whoever has that. Duane, maybe tell us about your farm operation in general, what kind of crops you have, livestock, whatever else might be part of your picture for what a farm should be in your case, and then we'll get into the pictures then.
Sure. I'm Duane Hopf. Farm name is Mill Creek Farms. It's a family farm operation 3 or 4 generations back. I've been farming for about 36 years and graduated in '84. Been farming ever since, through the road of hard knocks. Farm with my uncle, my aunt, and my cousin. We got some part-time help when we really need it. We farm in Dubois and Pike County, about 3,600 acres. We grow corn, both yellow and white. We've got soybeans. We do grow some non-GMO soybeans, so we got to be careful with chemistries on those acres. And we do have winter wheat. So we kind of get into all kinds of stuff on the cropping end. And we do have a beef herd cow-calf operation. We kind of use that to handle some of the rougher acres, keep them in pasture and hay and that kind of stuff. It's really quite a challenge to manage this whole deal and work with all the people that I need to keep it successful. But I attribute a lot to that, to my group that I've inherited with here at the farm, and very proud of them, and we work together well.
Okay, let's try to go through the slides here and maybe tell us what we're seeing here from shots from your farm.
Sure. The picture on the screen now, that's probably a new farm that we got. It's real sandy. It's very low CEC, and we raised crops in it this year for the first time. Had corn in there. Got that off fairly early in September, and I went in, put some cereal rye and some tillage radish in, just spread it and worked it in lightly with a vertical tillage tool and had good growth on it. And my goals there are trying to harbor some of the nutrients, and we are just trying to learn here with these low CEC soils and sands how we're going to keep the nutrients there because they exchange so quickly. We also want to increase the organic matter, the tilth of the soil, and I feel like we've made some nice steps in there. I'm anxious to no-till some soybeans into this stand in the spring, and I think we're off and running with that. And we do this on earlier planted fields. I think cover crops have a real niche there. I think if you get in the later plantings and things like that, and you want to seed cover crops, cereal rye, triticale is probably really the only option. But boy, if you get some crops off in September or even August for sure, cover crops are almost a must, and they could really do some good for you there. You can see there with that picture, the root system there on that cereal rye clump that I pulled out was very robust, and I was really impressed with the size of it. That particular species can take off and root and hold soil and nutrients, and it's doing the things that that a lot of people lean on cereal rye for. Getting that massive root mass, doing erosive protection, and I'm awful proud of that. And I feel like cereal rye is one of my go-tos on cover crops, and I kind of build with that. Throw in some brassicas, sometimes some clovers and stuff to get some nitrogen building. But cereal rye is a big part of my my operations cover crop portfolio.
Duane, for cover crops, what rates do you use out there for the different species you have?
This particular field here that we're in there was pretty low because I didn't really want a big, robust cover crop. I'm going to say the rates on the cereal rye, they were probably 25 to 30 pounds an acre. I think about 2 pounds of tillage radish in this instance. Again, I was just trying to get a light cover crop, I call it, because I don't really want a huge cover that I have to work through massive residue and have concerns if I had to kill it early that, I can't get in there because it's too wet. So I found it just, especially if you can plant it earlier like that, keep it a little bit light and let that thing stool out and build root mass and stuff. And it does quite well at doing the characteristics that you're looking for in a cover crop. Okay, yeah, this field here looks like it just seeded with wheat. Kind of shows the amount of cover that we got there with the no-till operation. No-tilling wheat into soybeans. Looks like a fragmented old clay tile there, which is pretty prominent around our farm with different sectors and stuff. It's important for me to note that we run winter wheat, both for the monetary end of it, and I think winter wheat does a lot of the things inherently that cover crops do. They keep something on the field or on the soil year round, and they're doing their growth throughout the points of years where you got a lot of barren soils, and you'll see in these I call them cover or wheat, soybean, corn rotations that we have, that those yields in those field matrices that have that are higher because of that, because we've got something green there growing year round. And it's important in our production history that we do a fair amount of that, because it's become quite profitable with the wheat and the straw that we sell, and the the double crop beans, and we're keeping something green on the ground, and I think it's great for the soil. So that's something to note. But we couldn't do it across all 3,600 acres because of the labor requirements, doing it all in a timely manner. But we take off 400 to 500 acres out of our corn soybean rotation and throw that wheat crop in there, and it really provides nice benefits both for the soil and for the profitability of your farm.
And do you use the same acres over and over again as far as where you put the wheat at, or do you rotate them through your whole operation, or how do you work that?
Primarily, I use the same acres and rotate them around. A lot of times they're located logistically pretty close to our core operation for ease of farming, and you also kind of close to the barn, if you will, and some kind of a more erodible land, hills and stuff like that, you're more likely to have me to run the weed in. I don't do it obviously in the creek bottoms and things like that, but I've got a niche amount of acres that I work with, and those soils are really responding nicely.
So you've got a way to transport the weed in when you're done. You've also got them in the places where it needs it the most and have the most success for a good wheat crop instead of the low areas where you may not have the nitrogen or drainage you need then.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And this is probably that same field that we're standing in. It kind of shows the lost cobs that we have there that we're working with. We farm around, I'd say around 100 lost cobs that we mess with across all the land that we do. We've got several grass waterways. We've got pipe structures and drop boxes along the edge of the fields where the drainage concourses hit an open ditch, trying to prevent that erosion area there at the ledge, if you will. We're all trying to prevent the soil from leaving the farm, and there's a lot of legacy in these systems. I mean, these ones that we were put up here, these were put in probably in the 60s by some relation, and you know, we're still trying to maintain them and utilize them, and they're still very effective today in preventing big gully erosion through these tracks. And you know, I'm kind of proud to be able to continue that legacy across these acres and also expand it across new farms, and you know, and apply some of the experience I've learned on all my acres. This is kind of showing a new grass waterway that we put in. It was an open ditch, kind of wiggly down through there, and just an open cut through there, and it was pretty tough to farm. There was triangle shaped fields, so we put the grass waterway in it. Kind of allows our larger equipment just to come through there, and with the automatic shutoffs involved with the equipment nowadays, kind of you know, is able to handle those situations better and also flow through, increasing my productivity, increasing the ability of the farm to hold its soils and prevent soil erosion. Just all around a good deal, and we're able to manage it real well versus what was there with the open ditch before. So we're just trying to make an improvements as we move forth on different landlords, and you know, make steps forward to facilitate more modern farming. This is just a simple surface intake along the county road ditch. We want to try and capture as much of that water as we can coming through both the culvert and down the road ditch drain, and get it into the underground tile system. So it has less opportunity to add to the field runoff to create those cuts and erodive areas that we've got going on. And these are quite advantageous and useful in that process for sure. So we can keep it in a pipe. It's not going to wash your soil, and it also helps to, you know, create a vent for your wash cob systems and underground systems, which I feel is an advantage, having the atmospheric air able to go into there rather than creating a draw and whenever your wash cobs are full. So you'll find that whenever we get a chance, we'll put that up there and put that surface grade on there around our operations. So they work well. This is me in the shop with my new toy. I bought that this last fall. Have got some experience using it now. It's basically a mechanical soil testing probe. Purchased that to allow me to take more samples that are GPS based. And this will allow me in the future to create fertilizing prescriptions where I can go out and tailor-made these applications to the nutrient levels that are in these fields based off these GPS samples, and you know, do a better job economically, environmentally to apply the nutrients that these crops need. And I'm excited to implement them. I should be getting a laptop for it here in the next few days. So I'm kind of spending some of my winter time updating my soil sampling plans and fertility management plans. So I'm anxious to, you know, put some more hours on that thing and move forward with this technology as it becomes available. You know, I've done a lot of hand probing through the years with just a T-handled soil probe. I wore out several of them through the years. And this thing's a heck of a lot nicer to go out there and get the numerous samples that you need to get to facilitate these type of variable rate prescriptions. So again, I'm looking forward to that.
When you're using your device out there with the mule you've got here or whatever, how many acres do you do a year, or what's your rotation every 3 or 4 years for fields that have good fertility levels established, or how do you, what's your plan for the sampling part of it?
In the past, I've sampled every field every year across my 3,600 acres. Some of my field size and sample sizes have been as big as 50 acres. So my goal is now to become to develop a more better definition of my soils by taking smaller acre sample size, and probably going to go about every 2 to 3 years. I'm not really fully decided on the protocol yet, but I'm going to kind of develop management zones that are relative to these fields, and kind of develop a plan of attack on the fertility based off these new management zones. So it's yet to be fully established, but I'm definitely thinking for the future to better handle these nutrients. Okay.
So Duane, we've got 4 questions for you here. First, starting off with the LSI activities and demonstrations. What have you basically learned from their site that you're able to take back to your farm? And were there any aha moments that you saw something that I got to do this, or something that, heck no, this is the worst idea from my particular farm, and learn something either direction then?
I've been able to attend a bunch of crop workshops and seminars, and been made aware of the soil conservation movement along the way. I've made several contacts that I cherish, and the group of people at the LSI are dedicated, and I'm glad to be a part of the team. Some of the successes I've seen there have been seeing firsthand the changes that have took place at the LSI. Namely the soil structure. That's the biggest thing that I say every time I get out there with the planter. It just seems to be more pliable, more resilient. It's just more forgiving. It used to be a guy work up a hill or something a little bit wet, and then he'd try to beat it down, and first rain it'd get hard as concrete. But you just don't see that when you roll in out there. You want to try and do some planting and stuff, that the soils just kind of flow together better, and seem to be responding nicely to the no-till protocol that we put forward there, and I'm very happy about that. And you know, lately we've been doing more cover crops and planting green and that kind of stuff, and I think that just augmented the growth that we've seen out there, and helping that along at a faster pace. And I'm really seeing some positive things moving forward. Sometimes we can't get it tested properly because of different variables and constraints that, you know, we all know that crop production have. So it's kind of a challenge there, and that's kind of some of the failures that I've seen, that we just can't get a good A/B comparison all the time that's going to make it say, you know, this is just black and white. We can't do anything but this. But you know, it's just such a challenge in production ag because of these variables that come at us weather-wise, and you know, just different timing factors that happen. So unlike just like our operation, there's challenges that we go after and meet up against, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, and it's really hard for me to figure out, taking the planter in and out of the field, where it's going to be a success. It's all up to the good Lord up above, and we can't beat that. You know, it's still a challenge for us. So, but it is what it is. You know, in the future, I'd like to continue the tilled strip versus the no-till feature, and do more cover crops out there, you know, more expansion of that, species and timings and stuff like that. And I think Melissa's always on the go with more soil health testing, and, you know, and I applaud that, because that allows me as a farmer to kind of grasp off what's available out there from industry and technology. And, you know, kind of think about implementing some of those things on our acres here. And I find that that's very worthwhile.
Okay. In general, what do you consider the most effective or best soil health practice that you might have adopted for your farm, either from the LSI or from other workshops or publications you've read or people you've talked to? What is your best thing out there on your operation?
I really think it's the exposure to the workshops and the people that we can network with. For me as a farmer, I mean, the LSI has always brought in good people to do presentations, and I feel like that's super valuable to me as a farmer, to get those contacts, get the people to ask and confer with, and get a feel on some of their successes and failures, which, you know, we're all in this as a battle. and we can team up with somebody that can be helpful in that arena, it's always good. And I'm very thankful for that through the LSI.
Kind of spread out the learning and take everybody's experiences in and help you get up to speed a little bit faster in certain areas you're interested in then.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. If you could go back 10 years, what changes would you do to the soil health decisions you might have made for your farming operations?
I think I'd probably implement more grazing of cover crops around my cattle operation, because I really feel like that's got an economic and environmental advantage for me that I maybe hadn't been exploited till just recently. We kind of been taking down fences through the years here at the operation, and it's found me with these cover crops. I put up more temporary electric fences than I did. You know, I've always been taking them down, but I found with the cover crop revolution, started putting up a few and keeping a few acres of cereal rye and brassicas of whatever sort, turnips, radishes, and some clovers in there. Utilizing those acres close to the barn where I can get some grazing benefits and also get cover crop benefits from it. So I wish I'd have done that a little bit earlier. And another thing I guess I should mention is in our area, we've got a lot of ability to get manures, poultry manures and stuff like that. And I feel like it's great to be able to move those manures from these livestock intense operations that don't have a lot of cropland to some crop farmers that maybe have some areas that need nutrients, and could have jumped on that bandwagon a little bit earlier, because, you know, those are some real benefits from doing that kind of application of those nutrients. And I feel like that could have been exploited a little bit earlier as well.
Kind of get the nutrients as well as build up the organic matter and stuff like that then.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. What advice do you have for other farmers who are considering making some type of change to their operation?
Oh, I've always been one to test and kind of analyze those tests and see if you know, if that's a fit for your operation. I think that's imperative to any kind of business success, that you look into the future and see which way you want to try and bend you toward. You know, and do it on a small scale. Pick a 10-acre field or something you can split. Treat half of it with your thoughts, you know, moving forward, this might be a way to go. Leave the other half traditionally how you've done it before. At the end of the year, kind of look and see how things looked out, you know, how you could apply these things, these treatments. Did it have a reaction? Could it be implemented without a big equipment change? Or if it is it cost justifiable? Again, just start slow, pick a path and analyze it, and then see if you want to throw that into your future crop plans, and you know, just keep building from that, and don't give up. Keep, each year's another year to keep trying and learn. So just keep moving forward in that arena, and start small and don't be afraid. You'll have some failures, you'll have some successes, and through it all, you should be able to define that path that you're supposed to be on to keep profitability in your operation.
Basically, start it small, so if it doesn't work, you're not putting a lot of money out on it, and it's something you can manage before you find that successful thing, if that's not the one thing you're trying at there. So
yeah, and sometimes, you know, just renting the piece of equipment or operation that you need to implement that can be something that you can do, you know, before you put the big capital investment in your own equipment that you don't feel like in the end is what you need to do. So kind of feel the water before you jump in.
okay. Do you have anything else before we move on to Jack? Any other comments or anything to pass on to farmers that might be listening today?
I don't. You know, I think you just have to keep your chin up and take your knocks when you get it. But, you know, this world's very resilient, and there's a teaching method that comes through that farmers understand, and that's crop success. And, you know, if you can visibly see it and feel it, it's there. Sometimes we can't measure it economically, but, you know, these are little life events that get thrown at you by doing plots, trials, or just basically growing every year and learning and adapting what you've learned into the future thoughts and plans. So keep up the good work.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Duane. And Jack, we'll roll on to you then. And again, Melissa or Jessica, whoever is getting the slides up, if you could pull those up. And Jack, go ahead and tell us about what your farm operation kind of looks like out there in the Bird's Eye area.
Okay. My name's Jack Welp. I'm been farming since got out of high school in 1977. Got a beef cattle operation, mostly a cow-calf, Angus cattle operation. Crops we raise, we do a lot of clovers, mainly a medium red clover, which has always been on this farm. We do alfalfa. We do mixed grass hays like the fescue, orchard grass, Timothy, things like that. We raise corn, raise wheat, a little bit of barley, mainly to harvest a little bit to put with my cover crops, and also I feed the barley to my young calves. And then we do a lot of cover crops. Maybe we'll get into those a little later. So that's basically the type of farm what we're doing here.
Okay. What can you tell us about the picture here? What are we standing in, Jack?
Okay, we're standing in a field of medium red clover. This was in wheat last year in 2020, and then I seeded the medium red usually in April. I broadcast seeded in and then harvest the wheat, and then we take one cutting of hay off it, and then that'll be for hay this year, and then we'll take a seed crop off of that in the first part of August, and then I'll go back in with cover crops, and then the next year we'll be back into corn. So in I guess you'd say 22, that'll be a cornfield. All right, there we're still standing in that field of medium red clover, and if you can see in the distance there, that's one of the herds of cattle I have, and actually it's a big hill, and anytime we can feed the hay out on the ground, we unroll the hay down the hill, let the cows eat. They'll sooner eat there than they will at a hay rack any day. So I really like to use that type of hay feeding, whatever we can. Okay, maybe next slide. Okay, here we're looking at Malansa Clover. It's maybe new to this area, but I tried it last year and I was really impressed by its growth. It comes on pretty vigorous end of April, 1st of May, and don't be afraid to let it grow a little bit and plant corn in at the end of May, because that was my best corn when I planted into that Malansa Clover, and it was probably 22nd, 23rd of May when we planted corn into that, and it was probably 18 inches tall. Now this is this year's right now. So, okay, there we're looking at the Malansa Clover and barley. Also was planted a little bit later, but like I think Alex said, a week, 10 days is a lot of difference. The earlier you can get planted, the better. And we're trying to plant shorter season corns and things. Something less than 110 days corn seems to work better for cover crops also. So get them in earlier. Follow the combine with the drill. Okay. Yeah, we've got some real small, probably Malansa Clover, maybe a rape plant there. It's some that got planted just a little later, and I think it was maybe just 4 or 5 days than the last slide. So timing is everything. Getting the corn off and getting the cover crops drilled, but they'll be there in the spring. I've got faith in it. I know last year I had a field looked like this time of year, and I thought, well, I'll never plant that again. And April came around, and that stuff took off. So just have faith in it, and don't go out too early and disc it under or whatever. Just hang in there. It'll come, and you'll be able to no-till in it. Okay, ready for next slide. There's a turnip, just a purple top. I seem to like those as good as any. I seem to get better germination on purple top than some of the other more expensive grazing turnips, and my cows prefer those just as well as the others, and they like them. So and we do quite a bit of the turnips and things. When I take my clover seed off in August, I like to go back in with turnips and rape, and you get a lot of growth. And then through the winter, when you get a chance to graze, you got a lot of grazing out there for the cattle. So, okay, next slide. Okay, that is rape. It's a darker green leaf. It's I always say it kind of looks like broccoli, almost, when it's just a plant, the plant part of broccoli. But that has a lot of root system to it. I say myself, I like them better than radish, but that everybody has their own take on that. So, but this rape will keep growing all winter. It will not winter kill, but glyphosate and a little 2,4-D will knock it real easy whenever you're ready to plant. It's no problem killing it, what I've found. Okay, next slide. That is the root system on the rape. I did not dig that, I just pulled it up. So I did tear off some. At the moment when Melissa was taking pictures, I didn't have a shovel with us, and I wish I could have dug it and really got down, but there's a lot more root system to that than what you really see, and that's the rape there. So I'm very happy with the massive roots. Okay, we did a picture on the planter. We've got the Martin till sweeps on there that run side of the no-till, and they just kind of roll across the ground in front of the no-till cutter, just knocking any old corn stalk or just laying the cover crop to the side just a little bit. So when your planter disc goes, you're not pinning the any kind of residue, and you get a real nice seed bed. So next slide. And there's just another view of the Martin till trash sweeps on the planter. Okay, next slide. There we dug out a little bit of soil in the medium red clover, and you can notice how the structure of that soil and how the earthworms work. You see the hole there, and how the water can filter in the soil when you get the hard rains and all, and you don't get near the runoff. What you do if you don't have all your green plants growing out there, and to hold your water in the hard rains. So.
Okay, Jack, we'll get into the same questions we asked some of your counterparts earlier.
Sure.
Attending some of the LSI activities, is there anything you kind of learned there? Any aha moments or any great things you learned to do or not to try on your own personal farm?
Well, it was many years ago. It was way before LSI when we did the sling test with dropping the clump of soil into the jar, and that was probably the one that really made me think the most about water, the holding capacity of water in the soil and things. That was one of the main that really got me, the light came on. But I always had a lot of takeaways from the LSI workshops and things that I don't know if I'd mentioned before. I've been no-tilling since 1975, so I can really tell on our farm, where we did do a little bit of chisel plowing and things like that. I've always seen that we're doing better with no-till than working the soil, and probably since the early 1990s we've been 100% no-till, and I'm not going back to working the soil because the soil is just so much looser and workable when you want to plant and all, and just even driving a tractor across the fields, it's just a lot smoother. You just have a lot better soil out there.
Okay. What do you consider the most effective or best soil health practice that you adopted to your farm? You've mentioned many things you do out there, but is there any one that kind of sticks out as giving you the most impact or most pleasing to have out there when you're farming some of your ground?
Well, wherever you use the cover crops and all is the best. We have also done some pattern tiling on some fields and have really changed the whole makeup of the field. I mean, you have good yields for all the way across the field. You don't have these areas where you have low yields, and with having we've added yield monitor and things in the combine several years ago. We've had it, and it's just a real eye opener. Where you need to do things, and where you need to maybe do a soil test here or there, and find out why is your yield low in that area. If it's not a wet area, it's definitely a nutrient. So you can try to change that, fix it. So that's
Okay.
what I've probably some of the more takeaways.
So everything from
Yeah.
cover crops to the high tech end, you've got different little things that have helped you out there to help improve what you're doing then.
Oh yes.
Okay, if you could go back 10 years, would there be something you'd change on what you did 10 years ago that would help you better meet what you're trying to do nowadays?
Well, I would probably have used more clovers. Earlier, I used rye grass and brassicas more, and I slowly was incorporating crimson clover, and I really liked the crimson clover. And then I started with the Malansa last year, and I had a real eye opening on the Malansa clover. And I hope it wasn't just a 1-year thing, and I hope it's going to be something of the future that really works well on our farm, because it was incredible.
Where'd you find out about the Malansa clover? Machinery
I was
or a
I
neighbor,
was in a workshop in a meeting, and they had this they were showing this Malansa clover, and I was really had an aha moment on it. And then I talked to the sales rep, and I said, I'd like to have 2 bags of that if I can get it. And he said, yeah. And he said, you meet me in the parking lot in 2 hours and I'll have it for you. And so, and then this year we planted more of it. So.
Okay. Do you have any advice for other farmers who are considering making some changes to their soil health operations?
Well, I was always one to try different cover crops. You learn from the different things you plant. Try a few acres of this or that, or if you can get a neighbor to split a bag of something with you, or find somebody that'll sell you a few pounds of this or whatever. And which I do that here at our greenhouse. I've got a little seed business on the side, and somebody just wants to try 5 pounds of this or 10 pounds of that. I have it. I don't care to break a bag, and because I plant it myself. So if they just want to, if anybody wants to try a little bit, see how it works for you, see how it grows. And some cover crops work better on different soil types, and just try to find one that really works for you. And but what I've seen in cover crops, they just get better as years go on. The more years you do it, the better things work.
Because of responsive from the soil or the cover crops, or how they get better? What do you see that is making you say that, I guess?
What I mean, the health of the soil, or you have more microbes and everything working better in the soil, and I think your cover crops just do better. As years go on, you have better soil health, and your cover crops just grow better. You can just see how much better your soil is getting. It gets darker, and things just get better.
Okay. Jack, anything else you want to tell the people who are watching today, or any other insights you might have seen over the years?
Well, I strongly encourage the farmers to attend your workshops, anything they can go to. No-till convention is probably one of the very, very best you can attend. And I think Alan Schmuck said the other day it's going to be in Louisville next year. Don't think it took place this year because of COVID things, unless it has, but It's usually in January, if I'm correct. It is one of the best meetings you could ever attend. It's a 3 or 4 day thing, but it's very well worth your while to attend it and learn all you can, because there's farmers from all over the United States and Canada and some other countries also that even attend these. So you can learn a lot of things. And 10 different workshops, local, LSI, things like that. And keep reading, because there's a lot of things you can benefit on to help your farm.
Okay.
I think that's about all I have.
Okay. We've got some general questions here in the chat box. Thank you again, Jack, but this is for all three of you now. Has anybody tried interseeding cover crops into a cash
Okay.
as a way to get covers started earlier?
I have not.
Okay. Jack, have you
Okay,
tried aerial seeding or anything?
Yes. I tried on a small scale, maybe 3 or 4 acres already, going in there in July and just hand seeding. And I did not have any luck with anything coming up. I used brassicas and some clover. I think I used some, crimson clover. I used crimson clover and a few turnips, and I didn't get any kind of clovers coming up. But I think the atrazine, possibly a little bit of that carryover was still there by going in July. It was probably middle of July, and I just tried it to see if it would work. But I didn't get any benefits doing that. I did not try August though, so
okay.
I know a lot of people have had airplanes fly things on, and maybe cereal rye probably works. That's the only thing I've ever seen that worked.
Alex, do you have any experience
That's all
with
I
it?
have.
I haven't. The person I know, Joe Groover from Western Illinois University, does a lot of it, and he's had some pretty good luck. He's kind of interesting guy to follow on the internet. And, no, I personally have not.
Okay. Let's see what else we've got in the chat box. What technique do you use for planting cover crops, and what has worked, and what would you strongly recommend? And also, what rates do you use? So Jack, maybe start with you again. How do you get your cover crops established? I'm guessing you've got a drill out there, given some pictures we've seen.
Yes, I've got a no-till drill that we use to seed our cover crops.
And is that something that works for you? You've mentioned trying to do the hand seeding.
The no-till drill is just get the seed in the soil, just 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever. Just get it in it just doesn't seem to want to grow if it's on top of the ground. It'll germinate. If you get a rain, it'll germinate, and if you don't, then when you don't get a rain, it dies. But
Okay.
if it's in the soil, it'll grow.
About like a cash crop then. Anything you have, you need to really get the good seed to soil contact, get it in the environment it needs to be successful then.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a believer in that.
Duane, how do you get your cover crops on?
In our operation, we've always primarily used the vertical tillage tool. After the co-op would come out and spread the cover crops with a plow down application of P&K. I would just lightly kind of mow down through the crop residue and lay that down and kind of over the cover crop seed and hope for a rain. And that's been quite successful for us through the years. Now we have seeded with the co-op and spreader trucks and not worked it primarily in bean residue because we don't want to tear it up. It's fragile, and had good luck there too as well, as long as you get timely rains. And the real critical areas, I sometimes go in there with the drill and seed them down in each of these fields to make sure that we've got a good set of roots there to hold the gullies from eroding and that kind of stuff in the real critical areas as well.
Alex, how about you? What's your preferred technique for getting cover crops in the ground?
I use the drill mostly. We do blend some cover crop seed with dry fertilizer blends in the fall. And at least on corn fodder, what we've seen is if you can spread that those nutrients in the seed before the corn fodder's been rained on, you'll have pretty good luck when it's fluffy and up. But anytime that the corn residue's been rained on, you try to just broadcast seed and hope for your germination's pretty poor. And I like got some friends that do the cover crop seeders off of their vertical tillage tools, and then we've got a few guys going to combine heads. Which if I farm bigger, I would look at that. It does add a lot of weight to your header, but man, that's a nice system, and that they're getting really good stands because that like I said, that corn residue hasn't been matted down. So the drill is my preferred method and my main method. So.
Okay. For those watching today, are there any other questions? You can put them in the chat box real quick, or come online and maybe ask the questions directly to our farmer panel. I do want to remind everybody that, again, this is the third of 4, and next week we're going to invite you again and hear from some of the individuals at the county, state, and federal levels to learn more about some of the technical and financial assistance available for you if you're looking at trying to improve your soil health, try to put in structures that some of the farmers here today talked about, and just anything else you might need to help with your soil challenges or successes on your own farm. So, again, with that, I don't see anything in the chat box for now. So I guess, Melissa, Jessica, we're probably going to try to wrap it up for today unless somebody else has something else to comment about.
Nope, just want to say thank you to everyone for coming today, and thank you to the farmers for being part of the panel, and thank you, Kenny, for moderating for 2 weeks in a row. I hope to see everyone back next week.